This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you with me. As always, if you text ARMY to 33777, put in your information, if you will. Don't need your phone number, but I do need your email address and zip code. And as we start going around the country, we will let you know if we're planning some dates now for Tulsa and some of our other markets. So if you would text ARMY to 33777, that'll help us keep you informed later. I got to begin with Robert Kennedy. First of all, I need to say congratulations to my affiliate WOKV down in Jacksonville, Florida. Was down there. I don't want to say I had anything to do with it, but they set a record in their fundraising for Namor Children's, the Child Cancer Fund. You know, just as an aside, I didn't appreciate what I was getting into with this Child Cancer Fund down there, just to give you an idea of what I was raising money for, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. So if you have a child who is getting treated in Jacksonville, Florida with cancer at one of the local children's cancer facilities, this fund, Child Cancer Fund, will help cover the mortgage costs of the families whose parents have to take leaves of absences from their jobs to take care of the families, or groceries, pays for gas, pays for funeral costs if a child doesn't survive, pays for bereavement and therapy costs. It just, what a wonderful nonprofit to help with. And so it was great to help them. I agreed to go do a bourbon event down there with a lot of listeners to help them with the fundraiser, and it worked. So thanks to everybody who stepped up. Now, let's talk about Robert Kennedy Jr. So RFK Jr. has dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. If you are on social media or you are a diehard Trump supporter, this matters to you greatly. If you are a run-of-the-mill person in your car right now or your office and you're just at work and you're trying to keep up on the news, it doesn't matter at all. This is one of those things that if you're on social media, Robert Kennedy's taken on a life of its own. If you are deeply plugged into politics, like you're a political obsessive, oh my gosh, you think it matters. It doesn't matter. Robert Kennedy did not have enough ballot access to get to 270 electoral college votes. Now, I know some of you think he did because he said he did, but what candidates say versus reality is not actually true. And Robert Kennedy did not even have enough ballot access to get to 270 electoral college votes. So Trump may get some of his supporters. He won't get all of his supporters. What I find wild is, and in fact, this happened to me at lunch today. So I went to lunch before the show, and an old neighbor comes up and he says, "So what do you think about Kennedy dropping out?" I said, "I don't think it matters." And he kind of looked at me. He's like, "Are you serious? I mean, Trump gets his support. I'm curious about the guy. I don't know much about him." I said, "That's the problem, is most people don't know much about him. Everyone I know who likes Robert Kennedy likes him because of the one thing they have in common, which is he's called out the elite in this country and their unwillingness to admit they were wrong, the conspiracy theories, and a lot of it has to do, by the way, with the COVID vaccine, which is kind of funny for Robert Kennedy to drop out after pushing COVID conspiracy theories and vaccine opposition and hating Dr. Fauci, to support the guy who elevated Dr. Fauci and funded Operation Warp Speed. That is kind of funny. But the reality is that he is pro-abortion. He is for gun control. He actually is. I know he said he's not, but if you actually look up his policy positions, he is. He opposes a physical wall at the border. He's a pretty reliable progressive vote, which has always kind of flabbergasted me. He supported Joe Biden's student loan bailout and condemned the Supreme Court for it. He supports government mandates to ban fossil fuels. He supports the expansion of wind and solar through government subsidy. He, on the issues, lines up better with Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. But he hates the elite, which is kind of funny. His last name is Kennedy. His full name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You get no more elite in this country than being the son of an assassinated attorney general who was running for president, who himself was the brother of the assassinated president of the United States. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an heir of Camelot. And the only reason the media hates him is because he supported Donald Trump, because he hates the same people a lot of Trump supporters hate, even as his views on public policy diametrically oppose the views of most Trump supporters. Trump supporters, do you support gun control? Because Robert Kennedy does. Do you support getting rid of your vehicles and transitioning to purely electric vehicles? Because Robert Kennedy does. Do you support Joe Biden's student loan bailout? Because Robert Kennedy does. Do you support building a physical wall between our border and Mexico? If you do, well, you should know Robert Kennedy opposes that. But what he did is he tapped into a growing strain on the right of skepticism about the elite and science. Robert Kennedy is one of the leading and foremost vaccine skeptics in the nation. And you should know that he's not just a COVID vaccine truther. He's also the MMR vaccine truther. He's skeptical of all vaccines. That is, vaccines have saved millions and millions and millions of lives. There are people who believe that the MMR vaccine causes autism, and that is in large part because the timing for symptoms of autism tend to develop around the timings of the MMR booster. I got to tell you, when my wife and I, when we had our kids, we did go through this level of concern about the massive amount of vaccines that are being given to kids, like all the time. I remember the one 4-shot day with a kid. And yeah, I think it's fair to be skeptical of that. But Robert Kennedy goes beyond skepticism to outright denial and claims of autism. Now, here's the thing. I know some of you out there believe that the MMR vaccine causes autism because Jenny McCarthy and other celebrities told you so. But the reality is there's no scientific basis for that. It has been well studied. It has been thoroughly debunked. It is a matter of correlation, not causation, as to when autism tends to crop up. But more than that, if you're willing to say that autism comes from the MMR because various doctors have told you it is, then you should at least acknowledge the basis for transgenderism, because there are lots of medical doctors out there who are willing to tell you that boys can become girls. Every crackpot conspiracy theorist has a PhD or an MD on his side, and just because that's so doesn't make it true. But that's where Robert Kennedy and Trump supporters connect, is on the conspiracy theories about the government elite. And there is a basis for that, because the government elite, the bureaucracy, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, has for years been telling us things that are true that are not true. They've been saying things are true that absolutely are not true. They have continuously revised protocols on COVID and refused to admit that the prior protocols were wrong. And they've done this about basic economics. They've done this about schools, you name it. By the way, Robert Kennedy also opposes school choice, school vouchers, and believes that we should prop up our public schools and not even do charter schools if the charter school funding comes from the state. So, yeah, he's a progressive. So he doesn't really matter, ultimately. There were some people who would vote for Robert Kennedy as a protest to Trump and Harris. Some of those people will go to Donald Trump, but a lot of those people, they were protesting Trump and Harris going with Kennedy. So now maybe they'll go to Jill Stein. Maybe they just won't vote. Maybe they'll go vote, but leave that line blank. But Kennedy didn't really move the needle a whole lot. I mean, just keep in mind that Kennedy in the race, Kennedy out of the race, in the two-way race between Harris and Trump, right now in the polling average, Harris is ahead. In the 4 or 5-way race, Harris was ahead as well. Will Donald Trump get some support? Yes. Will it be significant? No, I don't really think so. But at the same time, what I find notable is the mass obsession with people trying to find silver bullets. What I mean by that is that on both sides of the aisle now, you have the Harris people and the Trump people trying to find that one thing that's going to destroy the other side. And some of the Trump supporters have just said, Robert Kennedy, we've won it now. We've won it. We've got a Kennedy on our side. Kennedy on Friday, to his credit, gave a visceral, damning indictment of the Democratic Party of today and why he left the Democratic Party. And he's right in a lot of his characterizations about the Democratic Party. Those people already with Donald Trump, by and large. But beyond that, do you really want him campaigning with Donald Trump when they probe him on their differences about guns, about abortion, about immigration, about the border wall, about fossil fuels, about climate change? Do we really want to go there? The odds of Trump having him on the campaign trail, if he's in front of the media and has to ask questions or answer questions from the media, I think is probably a bridge too far. Kind of odd in that positioning. So I hate to pop the bubble. I told Philip and Charlie that I woke up this morning and decided I chose violence. That there are so many people who are so excited about Robert Kennedy and how much he matters. He doesn't matter. He never really mattered. He mattered so little that he couldn't get on the ballots in enough states to get to 270 electoral college votes, which is why he wasn't on the debate stage. Contrary to what he wanted you to believe, it was no grand conspiracy that kept him off the debate stage with Biden and Trump. The rules were very clear. You had to have ballot access in enough states to get to 270 electoral college votes. And he could never find enough signatures and enough supporters in enough states to make that matter. In a race with 50,000 to 100,000 deciding votes, you could say, oh my gosh, that's why he matters. Erickson, you're the one who says it's going to be a close vote with or without him. With or without him. What is notable, however, and this is the significant portion, is how the Democrats continue to say they must kill democracy to save democracy. They worked very hard to keep Robert F. Kennedy Jr. off the ballot in various states. They're working now here in my state of Georgia and others to throw the Green Party off the ballot. We'll spend more time with this later, but the Democrats are the party that says they got to kill democracy to save democracy. They got to stop people to save democracy. They got to stop Robert Kennedy. They're taking nothing for granted. And in the larger picture here, this is part of the underlying fundamental weakness involved in the Trump campaign at this moment as they try to regroup. There's a story out today that come Labor Day, they're going to retool, retinker their ground game because the volunteer modeling that they're doing isn't working. Kamala Harris has twice to 3 times as many paid operatives in the swing states as Donald Trump does. It's the fundamentals of the campaigning that are going to matter. It's not the endorsements that matter. It's not really even the vice presidential picks that matter so much, although I think Walz and Vance are both weaker picks than they should have picked, and they probably could have picked people who added more to the campaign. At the end of the day, this is a race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. The celebrity endorsements for Kamala Harris, including Oprah Winfrey, don't matter. The endorsements that Donald Trump has, including Robert Kennedy, don't matter. What matters are these two candidates and who can define the other in a way that alienates most Americans. And right now, because of a concerted media effort helping Kamala Harris, she's doing a good job of turning people off towards Donald Trump, and Donald Trump lacks the discipline to turn the corner. And his campaign says, trust us, we're going to retool and retinker over Labor Day and hit the ground running. I want to believe. We will see how it turns out. My suspicion, however, is that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And still, for those of you who think I'm hopeless or increasingly anti-Trump, 1, I gave him money. 2, I prefer his policies to hers. And 3, he can still win this thing because Kamala Harris hasn't done one thing that she's about to have to start doing. Open her mouth. No Willie Brown jokes here. She's going to have to start speaking to the public in interviews and on debate stages, and right now is trying to weasel her way out of a debate stage by trying to force Trump to agree to a rules change he doesn't want.
Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker, and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, happy to have you with me. Kamala Harris is trying to waffle her way out of the presidential debate on ABC News. And what's so funny about it is how they're trying to yet again spin that it's Trump walking away from it. So here's what happened. Remember, Donald Trump agreed to do this ABC debate with Joe Biden. And one of the terms were there would be space between them and the microphones would be cut off while the other one was talking. And when Joe Biden dropped out, Donald Trump said, well, I don't know that I'm going to debate Harris. I agreed to debate Biden. And the Democrats were, oh, he's bailing on the debate. He's bailing on the debate. He agreed to the debate. Well, Trump says, okay, fine, I'll do it. So now Harris says, well, I don't want the microphones turned off. She wants to have a I'm speaking Donald moment that'll go viral. And Trump saying, look, if she's changing the rules, this isn't the debate I agreed to. And the Democrats are like, he's trying to get out of it. No, that's not what's happening at all. Kamala Harris said that if Donald Trump needed to do this debate because he agreed to do it, so he says, okay. And now Kamala Harris is trying to change the rules. And of course, members of the media are falling all over themselves to claim that that's not really what's going on here. That's exactly what's going on here. She wants to have a viral moment where she gets to snap at Donald Trump that she's talking, stop interrupting me, to play it up as power girl politics. And she's not going to be able to get it if the microphones are turned off. So she wants the rules changed to try to benefit herself. Of course, again, members of the media are doing this. And the point here is that, obviously the media is biased towards Kamala Harris. I'm about to spend some time on that. But at the same time, you've also got to remember that Republicans have always had the situation and they've always been able to handle it and neutralize it, and roughing the refs matters greatly. And it's one reason I think the GOP needs to spend more time treating the press as the bad guy in this, because they really are. When we come back, in fact, I want to, if you haven't seen the exchange between Tom Cotton and John Carl of ABC News, I think it's very important for you to see it, to see just how into the Democratic narrative so many supposedly objective members of the press are. Between bank collapses, hundreds teetering on the brink, regulators fighting an unwinnable war, it seems, against inflation, and 22-year high interest rates that may or may not be coming down, Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war, keep listening for critical free report from Swiss America. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, and they can educate you on protecting your assets in their free report. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. I have read it. It can save you your retirement and finances. You can get a free copy of it. All you have to do is call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. By the way, the all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency, so don't think switching to Bitcoin can save you. It can't. Get the Secret War on Cash report completely free. Just mention my name, Eric, when you call or text 800-289-2646. Just text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646 or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Message and data rates may apply.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can subscribe to, our YouTube page, which you should do. Get the podcast, the live stream, all the other stuff. Now, we need to talk about roughing the refs, the media, because the media is clearly, collectively, the American National Press Corps is rooting for Kamala Harris. It's been obvious. They root for the Democrats every time. More so now, the younger they are, the more progressive they are, and they're truly, truly rooting for Kamala Harris's victory. Now, in that regard, many members of the press pay vastly more attention to the talking points of the left and the news of the left than they do of the right. It's always wild that you and I can talk about things, and then it comes up in the media. They're like, "What are you talking about? I've never heard this." And you can think of copious amounts of stories that were well known on the right, and people on the left had absolutely no idea. And one of the great examples is the Democrats bailing on Joe Biden. Back in February, Republicans were saying something is clearly wrong with Joe Biden. The Democrats are going to have to replace him. And Jonathan Martin, who had gone from National Review all the way to the New York Times and is now at Politico, wrote I would characterize it as snotty piece to Republicans that, of course, this isn't true. And if you believe this is true, you have no idea how politics works. And guess what happened? The media's surprise over Joe Biden and the dismissiveness for so long, or, for example, the media's surprise over all the anti-Semitic racism on the left, that they thought it was just something that happened on the right. Surprise, surprise, surprise. It's been interesting to see how the press has navigated their surprises. And you get another example of this with John Carl on ABC, who is decidedly not a Trump fan, deeply hostile to Donald Trump. You can tell it from his exchanges on social media, in the tank, so to speak, between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump pretty clearly. Drips with disdain for people on the right these days, very clearly in his behaviors on ABC and in his writings on social media. And this is his exchange with Tom Cotton.
And President Trump is going to draw a sharp contrast with Kamala Harris, who has supported things like decriminalizing illegal immigration or giving taxpayer-funded health insurance to illegal aliens or taking away health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, banning gas cars, confiscating firearms.
What do you mean taking away health insurance? What are you talking about?
She said when she ran for president that she wants to eliminate private health insurance on the job, 170 million Americans, John.
Yeah, I mean that is not her position now.
How do you know that's not her position? How do you know that's not her position?
I mean, she says she no longer supports Medicare for all.
She has not said that. Okay. Maybe anonymous aides on a Friday night have said that, but the last thing that she said on
this was not a radical convention. I mean, she as you heard me go through with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking the positions of the far left of her party. She's clearly making an effort to move to the middle.
I did hear what you said to Senator Sanders, and yeah. I thought it was clear that he's very disappointed that she's taking these efforts not to change her positions, but to hide her positions, John. The American people are totally justified to conclude that Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal based on what she campaigned on the last time she ran for president and what this administration has done for the last 4 years. Again, you would have thought watching the Democratic convention last week that the Democrats are not in office, that they're not in power, that they're campaigning against an incumbent Republican, when in reality, she's been part of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration for 4 years. And when she campaigned for president in her own right, she did in fact promise things like decriminalizing illegal immigration and taking away health insurance.
But that's a position she's clearly changed on, and she said she has changed. Yes, she has.
No, she has not. John, she has not said that.
She has not said that. Notice, John Karl is willing to, because of an anonymous staffer on a Friday afternoon saying she doesn't believe this, John Karl is like, well, she's obviously changed. That is not a standard John Karl would hold Donald Trump to. That is not a standard John Karl would hold any Republican to. But because an anonymous staffer, unquestioned by the media, says Kamala Harris has changed, he says, well, she's changed. Obviously, she's changed. Because he can't fathom she would double down on a position he knows is electorally fatal. And yet she hasn't come out and said otherwise. In fact, to remind you, this is the exchange on CNN.
Just to follow up on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, to reiterate, you support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on. This is Kamala Harris. That is the last time Kamala Harris has staked out a position on healthcare, and yet Jonathan Karl says she doesn't believe that anymore, not because Kamala Harris has said anything, but because an anonymous staffer who did not want her to attribute it to him or herself told the press she doesn't believe that anymore. He would never give Republicans the benefit of the doubt on that, and yet he's willing to give Kamala Harris. And to his credit, Tom Cotton aggressively pushes back and prosecutes the case. That's what we have to do. It is absolutely what must be done in each of these cases, and it's a lesson. J.D. Vance, of course, as well, is willing to do those things. This is him with Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press. We'll get to the abortion comment later, but this is J.D. Vance on the border issue.
But I think there are reasons to think that DHS is underestimating. Whatever the real number is, it's way too high, right? It's millions upon millions of illegal immigrants that have come in just since Kamala Harris became the border czar a few years ago.
She was put in charge of the root causes of migration.
Well, the root causes of migration, I would say, Kristen, is that Kamala Harris refuses to do her job as border czar. And let's just start there. I want to answer your question, but I think it's important to sort of sequence this in the right way. So if you want to get control of the illegal immigration problem, you have to stop the bleeding. You have to stop so many people from coming here illegally in the first place, and that means undoing everything that Kamala Harris did practically on day one of the administration. You have to reimpose deportations. You have to stop catch and release. Stop granting asylum to every single person who comes in here and says that they need asylum, and stop granting mass parole. These policies are why we have the immigration crisis that we have. So I think focus on fixing the problem. Before we even fix the problem, we've got to stop the problem from getting worse.
And as you know, President Biden passed a series of executive actions, and illegal border crossings are now at their lowest levels in about 5 years, so much so that Greg Abbott is no longer busing people to other cities. But let me ask this fundamental question,
please.
Fundamental question. Will families be separated under your mass deportation?
And again, because you made a point here, I do want to answer this question about families and about deportations, but you made this point that border crossings are lower. Border crossings at the southern border are lower because the Harris administration is sending more immigrants through the ports of entry. So instead of coming through the southern border, they're now being flown at taxpayer expense to the ports of entry all over our country. The number of illegal crossings, Kristen, this is a really important point. They're not any lower. They're just shuffling how the people are coming into the country in the first place. And this is very important.
They're able to
about
process them more efficiently, but Greg Abbott's not setting them to other
Kristen,
states.
I don't want a border czar who makes it more efficient for illegal immigrants to come into this country. That's why we have the problem that we have.
Thank you. Thank you to both Tom Cotton and J.D. Vance. And this is the fundamental issue here. They're not willing to accept the presupposition of the question. When the media, when the reporters ask questions, they do so with presuppositions. That is, things they presuppose in the formation of their question. And inevitably, those things favor the Democrats. Those things favor the Democrats. The result is that when the press corps formulates questions, those questions presuppose the truthfulness of a Democratic talking point. And what Tom Cotton and J.D. Vance both did is they refused to accept the presuppositional framing of the question. And it's what more Republicans need to do. You have to actually listen to the question and in real time process, what are they formulating in this question that's a Democratic talking point? And push back on that. It is absolutely true. Border crossings are down in insecure areas of the border. Why? Because what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are doing is rounding them all up and directing them to ports of entry to get them processed quicker instead of just spilling across the border. They're still coming. The number hasn't actually gone down of people crossing the border. It's just the number has gone down of people crossing the border outside of border checkpoints. They're still coming and they're still getting processed. And Christian Welker did not appear to have knowledge of that, nor did Jonathan Karl appear to have knowledge that Kamala Harris herself has not walked back their statements. And part of that is just the laziness of the press corps. They just take their spoon feed of information. Listen, when I was running political campaigns, one of the things I taught people underneath me to do is what I learned is when you write a press release, you write it as if it's the whole story for reporters so that reporters can take your press release and repackage it as their own story. You write it for them. And very good reporters reject that, but there are very few good reporters left. Most of them are hurried. They're on a deadline. They've got to manufacture a lot of stories because they got to get clicks. So they take your press release. And if it's a Democrat sending the press release, they're more likely to treat it honestly and more accurately than if it is a Republican pushing forward with their own. They'll question the Republicans more, but they also, you put in quotes from third parties that are favorable to you, and you put those people's contact information in. Very often what you get is the reporters pursue it. And they put those quotes in saying, well, I can say I talked to this person because I got their contact information. Reporters tend to be lazy. So for J.D. Vance and for Tom Cotton to question the presuppositions of the actual questions before moving forward with an answer is something Republicans need to do more of, because it is the key to undermining the press credibility and to rough the refs. And in this situation, one of the things we fundamentally absolutely have to do is rough the refs. We got to rough the refs, because otherwise they're going to just completely tank it for us. Final point before I move on. Yes, the American press corps is out to get our side. Yes, they are biased towards the left. Yes, they have a worldview of the left. And that has not stopped us from winning in the past, because we've been on our A game aggressively challenging reporters. The thing reporters hate more than anything else is to be made a fool of on their own network, which is what Tom Cotton did to John Karl on ABC News. And that's something that Karl is not going to be able to tolerate, and he's going to have to force himself to do better, or more Republicans will do the same, and it discredits him. And credibility is a key to his success in his mind. So rough the refs. All right. What do we have next, Jim? Hillsdale College. Folks, have you gotten their podcasts? Have you gotten Imprimis? Have you gotten their free class on the Constitution? Okay, side note, tangent. So, in undergrad, I did poli-sci and history, and my specialization for poli-sci and history combined was Revolutionary War period in the United States. And then in law school, my highest grade was con law. I love constitutional law. Took it in undergrad, took it in law school, loved con law. I learned stuff from Larry Arnn and the class on the Constitution that I did not learn in law school or college about the Constitutional Convention, the setups, the dynamics, the inter-party dynamics. You can get this, and it's completely free from Hillsdale College. It's one of the many things you get from Hillsdale. All you have to do is go to ericforhillsdale.com. ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. You go do that, you sign up, you can get their podcast network, you can subscribe to their podcast. They've got great podcasts. They've got Imprimis, which is free. It's show prep for me on a regular basis. It comes free to me in the mail, and it's fantastic. You can get it for free as well, and you can take their free classes. Everything is free. The podcast, Imprimis, the classes, and you can support them if you want. Tax-deductible donation. ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Go sign up with Hillsdale College. It will be show prep for your mind and daily life. ericforhillsdale.com. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you wish to be on the program, told you guys I chose violence today. Let me be very frank with you. The Republican ticket saying Donald Trump would veto any national abortion legislation is going to hurt him far more than Robert Kennedy's endorsement will help him. Pro-lifers are the most loyal group of people on the Republican Party side. J.D. Vance on Meet the Press said that Donald Trump would veto a national abortion ban. When Kristen Welker points out Lindsey Graham wants national legislation, J.D. Vance insists Donald Trump would veto that as well. That legislation from Lindsey Graham is a late-term abortion ban, fetal heartbeat pain ban. When an infant in utero can feel pain, a lot of Republicans nationally want a ban on that because the child can feel himself being ripped limb from limb. And J.D. Vance says Donald Trump would veto that this is a states' rights issue. That, by the way, was the position of Stephen Douglas in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, that each state should be able to decide its position on slavery and everyone coexist together. This is now Donald Trump's position on abortion. It is the Confederate position in the run-up to the Civil War. And it's probably not sustainable with a lot of pro-lifers. You may not like me saying that, but you should come to terms with the reality that this is the politics of replacement. It is the great replacement theory come to Republican politics, that the Trump campaign thinks they either have pro-lifers in the bag or can replace them. The problem is all the people they would replace them with wouldn't pee on him if he were on fire, and they've already gone to the altar of Moloch and thrown coins in Kamala Harris's coffers. Trying to replace pro-lifers as opposed to being loyal to them. Look, I realize what's actually happening here. If we're really honest about it, what's really happening is Donald Trump is improvising on the fly his position on abortion. And that is going to cause him problems. The fact that no one has messaged this behind the scenes and figured out the strategy. By the way, the actual strategy is the Glenn Youngkin strategy from Virginia, that while they did not pick up the Senate in Virginia, it neutralized the issue and wound up being majority support even in the exit polling. And that is a 15-week ban. It actually polls very well. That women know they're pregnant before then. 15 weeks is good enough for the viability of the fetus. If you need to make it 20 weeks, make it 20 weeks. But 15 is good, and it also stops fetal pain. And the Virginia Republicans poll tested it, focus grouped it, and it neutralized Democrats who were trying to bludgeon them to death on the issue. They did not win in Virginia, but they stopped the bleeding of what could have been. That Trump and Vance are doing this on the fly is just wild, and Vance is way more articulate about it than Trump, but it's not helpful when you're trying to consolidate your base in the run-up to a very narrow election. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, buying a franchise, need a heavy equipment loan, reach out to them, FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. I've known the Frost family a long time. Great people. They want to help you. FirstLibertyGA.com.